Hey everyone, so today Pantheon will be released in the new Beyond the Bandlewood expansion titled Magic Misadventures. He is the champion I'm looking forward to the most, and so I wanted to make this video explaining how he and his supporting cards work and show some decks to try on day one. So first of all, Pantheon comes with a new keyword called Faded. The first time each round an ally targets it, you grant it +1/+1. He has two other supporting cards that also have Faded. The first one is this card, the Saga Seeker. It's a 1 mana 1/2 with Faded. Then there's the Wounded White Flame, a 3 mana dragon that has 2 attack and 4 health, but it comes with Fury and Faded. Then of course we have Pantheon himself. So he comes down with Overwhelm and Faded, but also Barrier. And once you've targeted allies in 5 different rounds, then he levels up. So then once Pantheon levels up or he's summoned, he gets an extra keyword granted him for each round that you've targeted allies this game. So when the first one levels up, he's going to get 5 extra keywords. But if he gets removed from the board and you play another one, he could get an increased number of keywords if you've targeted more allies in different rounds. Also, his champion spell is called Pantheon Shield Vault. You grant an ally +1/+1 and then you stun an enemy. This works really well on Faded units because it ends up granting them +2/+2. So the first deck to try out is Pantheon Taric. Since Pantheon and the Faded keyword require targeting a unit, usually with buffs, this deck seeks to double the value of those buffs by playing them on Taric first, and then supporting a unit to duplicate the spell. Also, combining Targon with Demacia gives you access to Rally, which is insanely good with Taric, and also since the change to Relentless Pursuit, both rallies triggered the Faded keyword, but the main reason they are broken with Taric, if you didn't know, is that it actually duplicates the Rally effect as well. So when you support a unit, it'll copy the Barrier or the +1/+1, but it also copies the Rally, resulting in 2 different rallies just from one of these cards. Also, Taric passively grants Toughness, and eventually Invulnerability, which is really good for Pantheon, especially before he levels up. So the deck has Gift Giver, Brightsteel Protector, Hail, Sharp Sight, Single Combat, both the rallies like I said, and Concerted to all help trigger Faded. The deck also has access to decent removal with the Challenger units as Fleet Feather Tracker and Screeching Dragon, and then also your strike spells like Single Combat and Concerted. So Pantheon Akshan is the next deck to try. This deck gets more value than some versions, proactively triggering Faded, because it also advances the Warlord's Palace and Warlord's Horde from Akshan. The main notable cards from this version starts with Shape Stone, giving you up to +3/+2 if you've summoned an Akshan or a Vagabond, and for only 1 mana. I think Absolver is also really good in this deck, because although Pantheon already has Overwhelm, the spell breaks into 2 pieces once you've leveled the champion, allowing you to use both spells to trigger 2 separate Faded units, and then you can just give the Overwhelm one to a Saga Seeker or a Wounded White Flame, for a potential of +3/+2 to 2 different units with just 1 card. Then Vakarn Bruiser is a beefy unit that creates Lucky Finds when he strikes, which are 0 mana fleeting spells that grant a keyword or stats depending on your choice from 3 random options, which are obviously really good on Faded units and leveling both your champions. Pantheon Shyvana is the next deck to try. It's similar to the Taric version, but just goes more for the Dragon synergy with Wounded White Flame. The notable cards from this version start with Dragon Chow. The Dragon Chow is a 0/3, but when you play a dragon, it makes the dragon strike it and then you draw 1. And the cool thing is that with White Flame, because it only has 2 attack, it actually doesn't kill the Dragon Chow. So it allows you to get 2 draws off the Dragon Chow, which is pretty nuts. But if you block with Dragon Chow on turn 1 or 2 and make it weak, then you actually can get the Fury effect by White Flame from killing it. So since you're already running White Flame and Screeching Dragon, Shyvana just makes sense. Because once she's seen 12+ damage, she levels up, and she ends up increasing her attack by +2/+2 every time she sends an attack. And she gives you the Strike spell, which is a 3 mana card that will let you strike an enemy card with one of your cards, and if it's a dragon it gets healed after, which allows you to control the board. And because you're in dragons, you're able to run the Dragon's Clutch, which draws you 2 different dragons, so you have pretty good odds to get a White Flame, which is probably like the best dragon right now. But what's also cool is that since they changed it a couple months ago to also grant Overwhelm if you use the second option, it makes it not bad if you double draw it, especially on the White Flame, which is going to get really big because it has Fury and Faded. Pantheon isn't the fastest to level up in this version, but from what I've seen today, it actually seems like he's better to come down late anyways, where he gets more keywords. And then you have the Dragon Win Con as well, so you don't need to just rely on Pantheon. So next is Pantheon Zoe. This weird shit was concocted by Swim. Actually really funny though, and abuses the Mask Mother to absorb the Faded keyword and even Fury from White Flame, or even Overwhelm and Barrier from Pantheon if you really wanted to. and then obviously uses the Faded keyword to get really big. It also has access to a 0 mana Faded trigger, being Faded Memories, which creates copies of the units which can be eaten by Mask Mother to stop being ephemeral. Glimpse and Vile Feast in the SI package also technically can advance Pantheon's target allies condition, and probably extremely unlikely but technically possible, Zoe can level up, and then if you summon a Pantheon, you grant all of his keywords to your entire board. And then you have Atrocity as an extra finisher, which can literally one turn kill people potentially due to how big you can get these Mask Mothers. This deck also runs Ayula, which not all the other versions run, which triggers Faded as well as giving Spell Shield, which helps in general but especially for your Atrocities. Then we have Freljord Pantheon. I saw Majin Bay try this out today. So first off, this deck has access to Freljord battle tricks like Elixir of Iron and Battle Fury, which is really cool. But also Troll Chant seems really nuts when combined with Faded. It's already just such a good card, being able to swing 2 different fights in a combat, but now instead of just giving 2 health, it can actually give +1, +3 to a Faded unit, which seems really crazy. It also has Starlight Seer to give even more value from Faded triggers, buffing your units, hopefully Pantheon or White Flame. He also opted for some different Targon cards that weren't super common amongst the other versions, like Sunblessed Vigor, and also 3 gifts from Beyond. Although it wasn't very common, it does make a lot of sense. There are some really good moon weapons to choose from, usually the stun for utility, or the weapons that trigger Faded and give stats plus overwhelm or lifesteal. And also makes use of 2 Bastion, most likely since this deck seems to be going like all in on like a small number of really big units. And it's also technically a Faded trigger by itself. Also, being in Freljord and only having 1 champion being Pantheon, it allows the use of Entreat, so basically has 6 copies of Pantheon, making drawing Pantheon way more consistent than other decks. And yeah, this deck looks really fun. It also makes me want to build a Field Rush version of Pantheon somehow in the future. So lastly we have Pantheon Riven. This looks like one of the most promising versions and was built by Alan ZQ. This deck makes use of Riven's Blade Fragments for cheap 1 mana Faded activators. Each fragment can either have Quick Attack, Overwhelm, or +2 attack, and they can also be dropped by Blade Squire when he dies. And after using the 3 different Blade Fragments, you get this Blade of the Exile spell, which is a 1 mana slow spell that gives you +2 attack, Quick Attack, and Overwhelm. So it's good on Pantheon just for the Quick Attack and stat buff, but also turns your other Faded followers into scary threats, or Riven obviously. The deck also has good interaction with Whirling Death and Bloody Business. He also uses Blinded Mystic, which others didn't seem to like. It really makes sense though in a Faded deck, as it gives +1/+1 to an ally, but also silences an enemy follower, without them being able to respond. This is technically a meta call, but Alan predicts it'll be really good in this expansion. Then we have Ruined Reckoner. It gives you a spell on summon called the Midnight Raid. It lets an ally start a free attack, and in doing so triggers Faded. This is a really powerful effect when combined with the large overwhelm threats the deck has. Yeah, that's all the decks I'm currently aware of from the 1 day of seeing people play early access. That being said, it should be obvious, but they're not the most refined and only have a single day of testing like I said. It should be a good starting point though to try out at the start of the expansion. And some decks had different ratios and different cards in general from Targon. You guys could mix and match them between the different versions if you think it'll make more sense. I still also have to try and figure out an Ionian version, but maybe that'll be too toxic. Yeah, I hope you guys have some stuff to have fun with now on release. If you guys make some improvements or have any ideas in general, I'd love to hear about them in the comments. I plan on playing a lot of Pantheon, but I also want to try out a lot of new decks out as well, and I'll also be posting decks to help you climb in general this new season. Thank you those of you who watched all the way through, I really appreciate you guys. I don't really edit videos like this very often, and I'd love any criticism you have to make better ones in the future, but I hope you guys like it. Thanks.